Recent and numerous studies confirm that the majority of Americans share two similar but very distinct, very different beliefs. First, Americans claim to be spiritual people. A full 80% of us believe in God, and 70% of us identify as spiritual in some way, though not necessarily religious. Those who identify as religious only make up about 40% of the population. Well, what's the difference? I would say that religion is much more about belief and more institutional. Spirituality is more about connection and more personal. Religion is corporate. Spirituality is more individual. Religion has well-established rules. Spirituality has well-established autonomy. Religion seeks confidence and to cope. Spirituality seeks mystery and meaning. On and on I could go about those differences. The places of commonality, but overwhelmingly, Americans are more spiritual than they are religious. And the second belief, similar but distinct. The majority of Americans also believe in the paranormal. This is not spirituality. This is certainly not religion. And it's not the belief in what is known as extraordinary creatures. Extraordinary creatures being the Yeti, Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, mermaids, werewolves, and the Louisiana swamp ape, and all the likes. A lot of Americans believe in these things, but only about a tithe or so. Not nearly as many who believe in aliens or intelligent life beyond this planet. 50% of us believe in aliens. Still, none of this is the paranormal. Not God, not angels, not the devil, not Sasquatch or little green men from Mars. The paranormal is the belief in the spiritually inexplicable in general and belief in ghosts in particular. There are more people in this country who believe in ghosts than who consider themselves religious. And this is so interesting to me, but not surprising, because we are experiential people. We've seen and felt things. It's that spooky, unexplained presence. Lights flickering on and off when they shouldn't be. The sense of an unknown energy field, inexplicable sounds or music, hearing the voice of someone who is no longer living, unexplained changes in room temperature, a long-gone loved one coming to you in a dream, a comforting aura or spirit at your greatest time of need. Many have had some kind of experience like this, and it leads a lot of people to believe in spirits, ghosts, souls out there in the ether. Well, allow me to mix all this data into one great bucket, and you will find that there are entire religions and personal spiritualities built on trying to communicate with these elusive spirits, even though our Jewish and Christian scriptures forbid such things. Still, there is no major historical religion that does not acknowledge the reality of the paranormal. You start speaking to Catholics, for example, about seeing ghosts, and they will immediately call their priest, because usually that's chalked up to something demonic. It's bad. Stay away from it. We Protestants, in true multi-denominational form, are all over the place. But we largely just shrug our shoulders and say, move along, there's nothing to see here. Hindus and Buddhists take ghosts in stride, because there are probably some poor souls trying to work out their karma, and they got stuck in between worlds. Muslims don't generally believe in the paranormal, but they accept the idea of the jinn, or what we call the genie. These spirit beings that are neither God nor human, mentioned about 30 times in the Quran. And since the establishment of rabbinical Judaism, The Hebrew concept of the paranormal is simply impossible to define as far as I can tell. It depends upon which branch of Judaism that one calls home. Religion, spirituality, and the belief in the paranormal are as old as humanity, and they are universal. Pick any culture on any continent from any time in human history, and you will find religion, spirituality, and the belief in the paranormal. They are distinct, different categories, but sometimes they come crashing headlong together. And one such place was the Greco-Roman Empire, into which Jesus of Nazareth was born and into which Luke targeted with his gospel. The Greeks were deeply, deeply religious. They worshipped the 12 Olympians. You've heard of these people: Zeus, Poseidon, Aphrodite, Athena, Artemis, Apollo, the rest. And they were deeply spiritual. The Greeks had countless what were called mystery cults outside the mainstream and institutional religion of the Olympians. And later in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul grapples with some of these. And yes, the Greeks were committed believers in the paranormal. Their belief in ghosts was so accepted, so well established, and so refined that they had 3 different categories of ghosts that one might meet on any given haunted evening, each category escalating with intensity. And here they are. First, those who had been improperly buried. This could cause a soul to get trapped between worlds, the Greeks and the Romans believed. Such spirits weren't malicious, they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And eventually they would work themselves on to whatever was next. Second, they believed in a different category of ghosts, those who had died untimely or too young. A young woman who died before she could marry, a child or a teenager, a man who was about to launch some great adventure but died before its completion. Some of these spirits were a little disturbed about the life that had been taken from them, and they could haunt the living, said the Greeks. And then the final category, those who had died by means of violence. The ancients believed that some of these spirits were caught not for a season, but for all of eternity as ethereal, unreal, transparent specters unfit to function on earth and denied entry to paradise or even to Hades. They were the restless dead, zombie-like creatures for we who live in the 21st century, and they often had furious, ill intentions toward the living. These ghosts were regarded as dangerous. And now we return to Luke 24. Jesus appears in this hidden room just as the walkers of the Emmaus Road tell the people in this room, the disciples, of their encounter with Jesus. Everyone is dumbfounded. Everyone is startled. Everyone is frightened, filled with doubt, disbelieving, terrified. Why? They think that Jesus is a ghost, and not just any kind of ghost. He is the apparition of the worst kind, category 3 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Jesus had died in this most violent and grisly way ever conceived by the depraved human imagination: crucifixion. If anyone had cause to be angry, if anyone had a score to settle, if anyone was justified in squaring things with others for what had been done to him, if anyone was up to do some poltergeisting, it was Jesus. And now here he is, standing among those, if you might remember, who said they were his friend, and they said, "We will go and follow you wherever you go." And when they needed him the most, they bailed out. And now, here he is. And they think that he is a ghost, come to haunt them, and they are terrified of him. But Jesus doesn't want them to be afraid. Peace be with you, he says, which sounds so formal. Peace be with you. It's literally, shh, what you would say to a spooked child. Shh, it's okay. And he keeps telling them, I'm real. Look at my hands. Look at my feet. You can see it's really me. Touch me. Make sure that I'm not a ghost, because ghosts don't have bodies. I'm not here to haunt, to hurt, to harm you. And then to prove it, Jesus does something practical. And when you read it in the text, it is hysterical, really. Do you have something to eat? Now, I have no experience with such, but I would imagine that if you had been dead for 3 days and you had to claw your way out of a grave in a locked vault in the cemetery, and then you walk 7 miles with some yahoos who didn't know what was going on, and you sit down to talk to them, but then you have to leave before the first course is served, yes, I would want something to eat by this time in the day as well, wouldn't you? They give him a piece of broiled fish, and he ate it as they watched. As they watched. What a hysterical, funny little detail. I mean, it's creepy to watch someone while they eat. Isn't it? Or to be watched while you eat. I imagine it was something in the room like my dogs when I'm eating a hamburger. Hand to the plate, hand to the mouth. They watch him eat because no spirit could do that. With a ghost, this wouldn't be possible. So what appears to be a comical or a creepy little detail about a whole room watching Jesus eat dinner is suddenly so much more. Luke was telegraphing to his readers that this was no spooky campfire story. This was no paranormal sighting, no episode of Ghost Hunters. This is real. This is a real encounter with the real living Christ, initiated by those who had had an experience of the same for themselves. As I said last Sunday, when you tell your story of Jesus, God just might open the heart of someone else to experience the real themselves. Real with a capital R. Real even for those who have resisted. Real even for those who are afraid. Real for those who doubt. At the end of the Emmaus Road, this room is filled with just such individuals. There are no believers in the aftermath of the resurrection, only skeptics, only cynics, only doubters, only those afraid and uncertain. But something happened to them that changed them forever, and that something is still happening today. And I'm not talking about the paranormal. I'm agnostic about such things. Who knows? I'm not talking about extraordinary creatures. There's no evidence, even though I have been scared of Bigfoot my entire life. I'm not talking about aliens. Intelligent life is likely out there somewhere in this vast universe. But if it is out there, and they are indeed intelligent, they wouldn't touch us with a 10 light year pole. We are too much trouble. We are like a virus. Why would anybody want to come visit our neighborhood? And I'm definitely not talking about religion. I'm especially not talking about religion, which is exceptionally skilled at taking what is wonderful and holy and just beating the daylights out of it. But I am talking about Jesus. I am talking about the Christ. I am talking about the spiritual, and the spiritual is real with a capital R, and that's my testimony. I understand that such a testimony might not be yours. You may take religion and the spiritual, the paranormal, the extraordinary, and just lump it all into one big pile. It's all the same, and then jettison it all of it. If it can't be actually proven, you have no use for it. Well, I want you to know that I deeply respect that conclusion. And I deeply respect you if that is your conviction. I understand how intelligent, scientific-minded, critical thinkers arrive at those conclusions. Let me say that many of us who continue to keep the faith and who seek to follow Jesus, we just might have more in common with you, with the agnostic, than we do with some religious people. Did you hear that? Because religion tends to close our hearts and minds to anything outside the restrictive boundaries that have been set for us and told us to obey by some outside authority. My youngest son, who is 21, was with me this week, and we were dropping his friend off at the airport, so we had some time together coming back. And he was in the passenger seat listening to his devil music. It's hip-hop. And he keeps trying to sell me on it. And I'm trying. I'm really trying. Not to be like my parents were about Kiss, AC/DC, and Prince. I'm really, really trying. I'm trying to keep an open mind and an open heart. But the generational divide is real with a capital R. Well, he was oblivious of the talk I would be giving today, but out of nowhere, he snatches off his earphones and he says, "Hey, you're a man of God," which made me laugh out loud. "Hey, you're a man of God. What do you think about Charles Darwin?" So then I thought, maybe some of this music's okay. I will repeat to you what I told him. I am of the persuasion that you can at once be a person who believes in contemporary science and be a person of deep faith in God. That you can be analytical and empirical while remaining mystical and spiritual. That you can appreciate and value Newton, Einstein, Sagan, Hawking, and Darwin and still be a committed follower of Jesus. I am making a case, or at least offering an invitation, that you accept what is real as extending to the spiritual world, that it not be contained strictly within the material world. And I make that invitation to both the religious and the agnostic. This is Dr. William James, who is considered the father of American psychology. He certainly looks like the father of something, doesn't he? So distinguished. He did not set out to be considered so, having set out to become a physician. He stumbled into psychology, philosophy, and finally, and most importantly, faith and spirituality. He was a prolific writer, strong defender of the personal, spiritual awakening experience as being a real thing. He believed that healthy spirituality was simply a part of being a healthy human being. And while we should embrace knowledge and science and psychology and medicine, we should never attempt to substitute any of these for spirituality. His studies and his research led him to believe that every person was in search of what he called ultimate reality. That we are all born with a belief in the unseen, and we seek it. And for most of human history, we have called this thing God. Even when we don't understand it, and even when we can't define it. A quote of his: "We might be in this universe like dogs and cats in a library. We see all the books and we hear all the conversations, but we have no inkling whatsoever as to the meaning of it all. But lacking understanding does not mean we are left lacking. God, our Creator, our Maker, and the lover of our souls, simply will not leave humanity alone. James called it passivity. We are born seekers, yes. We have eternity planted in our hearts, yes. We reach for ultimate reality, yes. But ultimate reality is also reaching for us. The great seeker, with a capital S, is seeking the seeking. Eternity breaks through and into the human experience. The holy reveals itself to us. God takes the initiative. Christ surprises us with Himself. And when we are in this passive, receptive position of acceptance, then using William James's favorite description for God, he says, the wondrous more can become reality in our everyday personal lives. All the great spiritual mystics, some religious, some not, some ancient, some contemporary, agree on this count. St. Francis of Assisi, Thomas Merton, Julian of Norwich, Mother Teresa, James Finley, Janet Hagberg, Richard Rohr, Sally McFaig, St. John of the Cross, George Fox, Therese of Lisieux, J.P. Williams. You don't have to go searching for God. God is searching for you. There's no way you can get more of God in your life. You simply cast aside those things that get in the way of God being God in your life. You don't seek out a spiritual experience. The spiritual will find you within the experience of your life. And I'll quote my favorite, Meister Eckhart, once again. To be empty of all things is to be full of God. When you have opened and emptied yourself, God enters into you with all that God is, the God who is the real, capital R, being of all things. This is not asking you to put God to the test, asking God to prove something. It's not hollowing out your brain and flushing your intellectual rigor down the toilet. It's not a demand that you move into the monastery and become a mystic. And it's certainly not an invitation that you be religious or join a movement. I'm simply asking you to open your heart. And it might take some time. You might find it a little scary. You may feel resistance, but try it. And I believe that the wondrous more will take care of leading you to the Christ and to all that is real. Maybe poetry is best here. And there is no better poet than Walt Whitman. This is an excerpt from his Song of the Open Road. And I offer it to every seeker among us, to everyone seeking the real. And I offer it as my prayer today. Afoot and light-hearted, I take to the open road. Healthy, free, the world before me. I believe that much unseen is here. From this hour I ordain myself loosed of limits and imaginary lines, going where I list, listening to others, considering well what they say, pausing, searching, receiving, contemplating, divesting myself of all that would hold me. Now I re-examine philosophies and religions. They may prove well in lecture rooms, but yet not prove at all under the spacious clouds and along the landscape and flowing currents. Whoever you are, come travel with me. Traveling with me, you find what never tires. Be not discouraged. Keep on. There are divine things. I swear to you, there are divine things more beautiful than words can tell. Gather the minds of men out of their brains. Gather the love out of their hearts. Know the universe itself as a road a road for traveling souls. All religion, all solid things, all that was or is, falls before the procession of souls along the grand road of this universe. Forever alive, forever forward, we go. I know not where, but I know that we go toward the best, toward something great. You must not stay sleeping and dallying there in your house, though you built it or though it may have been built for you, out of the dark confinement, out from behind the screen. For the road is before us. It is safe. I have tried it. My own feet have tried it well. Be not detained. Friend, I give you my hand. I give you my love more precious than money. I give you myself. Will you give me yourself? Will you come travel with me? Shall we stick by each other as long as we live? And God's people say,